Greetings, I'm Dave Gilmore, and this is Design Intelligence. In the studios today is Steve Morris, the president of SNC-Lavalin. Steve sits over the engineering services for the corporation, a large and amorphous organization spanning the globe. Our conversation will center around his journey through his career, the engineering world, and the greater world of the built environment.
Welcome to this edition of This Is Design Intelligence, conversations with leadership voices in the built environment.
Well, thank you for joining us on This Is Design Intelligence. It's a nice time to be together. It's been an extraordinary journey these last few years, and you have gone through a change in your life and your career. You've just had you were with one of the large global firms, and you moved over to another large global firm. You've had an extraordinary journey. I'd like to hear more, and I know our audience would like to hear more about your journey through global engineering and the different, I'll call it, flavors of engineering that you've participated in and up until this point and where you are today.
I mean, it's been a huge privilege to be on the journey I've been on. I guess when I first walked into a small Atkins office in the west of England in what was the ancient history of 1988 to start drawing an ink pen on tracing paper, I could never have imagined that I would have had the sort of incredible range of experiences and met all the great people I have done. So I'm hugely grateful to have been in the industry. The journey took me from a small farm in Wales, and I was reading one of the great articles on your website, actually, Dave, and there was an article by Professor Margarita Jova that had Stefan's sort of curves of acceleration for Earth systems and socioeconomics. And I feel like in terms of my experiences, I'm on that similar sort of acceleration curve. So I started off doing civil engineering, designing buildings, swimming pools, office blocks, sports stadia. And then I, through a freak of circumstance, ended up doing structural dynamics, a more mathematical, what happens if this explodes or that shakes around about a bit or there's an earthquake. And that was mathematically challenging and really interesting. And then that led me into, the delivery of projects and there somewhat reluctantly into leading businesses. I was manipulated by a caring boss from project delivery to leading businesses, but he did me a service, and I've really enjoyed the incredible complexity of trying to balance all the competing demands that we have in our industry, and that's taken me on a journey where I've led businesses in every continent, over 80 countries. I've worked in most of the industries in the built environment, and I've taken a project role and a leadership role from everything from grand strategy for the development of a city for the next 50 years through to the hands-on construction of power stations, and it's been an incredible journey. But there's no time better, in my view, to be in our industry than today, and apart from, I think tomorrow will be better. So it's been a great journey.
I love that move from practicing to leading practices that you've made. And boy, are there a lot of lessons about leadership that no one taught us in school, that's for sure. And it's called on-the-job training, trial by error. But you've ascended and you've gotten to this wonderful place. I look at SNC-Lavalin, Atkins, envisioning its future to challenge the status quo of traditional engineering and accelerate this idea of environmental responsibility while also meeting and exceeding your shareholder expectations, which sometimes it seems like it's almost in conflict, but it's not. It's not in conflict. And here you are in this unique opportunity to move beyond traditional da-doop, as all of your competitors move along one particular path. You are really considering, how do we pivot upwards into a new reality that takes these things in? How is the firm looking to the future of itself on a global basis?
Well, with great excitement would be one way of answering that question. And we had some challenges in our business 5 or 6 years ago. We'd undertaken a series of projects that in a big sort of fixed price construction mode that really overstretched us, and we were forced to really re-examine what we wanted to be in the future, and we did some really good hard thinking about that, and I think as the world is becoming, I said there was no better time to be in our industry today than today, and the reason for that I think is this rapid acceleration of the tools that we have at our fingertips, of the alignment around the desire to save our planet and our species, of the enormous infrastructure gap and the increasing complexity of the way the world is and how it works. So I think the whole complex situation just got a whole load more complex, but I think we embrace that. And many of the companies, I think, in our industry would have good intent around environment, good intent around diversity, good intent to use the digital tools. But I think we feel that it can't stop there, because then nothing happens. And so from intent to outcome, I think is a combination of not only putting the resources and the passion and the focus and the planning around things, but really embracing and respecting the challenge and deeply understanding the complexities of it. Because you can make these promises, we're going to be net zero by 2030. But do we really understand what that takes? And what gives us confidence to make such a significant commitment as that publicly? And what I loved about the way that SNC-Lavalin thinks about this, we just didn't come out with that clip statement, but from our chief executive through the rest of the business, we studied the problem and said, well, what would it take? And what are the complexities? And I think we were quite humble about it. We've got great capability in the business. We recognize the need for partners and to take a holistic look at it. And only after we'd done that work did we make the commitments that we've made. So one example of the journey we're on, I think, from intent to outcome is the determination to be a real leading player in the decarbonisation of the planet. And what that means for us in reality is that every time we engage with a customer, we are working with them not only to give them what they asked for, but to say to them, do you know, if you'd have asked us for something different, which is exactly this, then we could have come up with a solution which was not only 15% less carbon, but also had a different set of outcomes. So I think there's a great journey in the industry from looking at things as technocrats to looking at them as human beings, as part of the planet, and seeing what we can do to make a difference holistically.
And so that's interesting you put it that way, because to be able to say, hey, had you asked us this, we would have been able to do X. That presumes a relationship dynamic is happening between you and the client, where you feel the freedom to have that kind of conversation. And I find that far too many in the industry are operating out of a transactional base. They asked us to do this. This is what the contract says. That's what we'll do. And if we push back, then we risk potentially losing favor, as opposed to seeing this whole thing as a relationship that's going to go on for years, not only around this particular engagement, but potentially more and more and more engagements. And in that, life is better operated as a relationship, isn't it? Where you can have honest dialogue with one another around these things.
Better in a whole bunch of ways, including a lot more fun. But I think this is one of the formative experiences in my career has been the number of times when customers have said to us after we've overcome challenges, I wish you'd been harder on us at the start. I wish you'd have given us tougher love. And tough love it needs toughness and it needs love, and so I think that is the relationship that we have with many of our customers, and we aspire to with all of them. And it takes courage, I think, both from our side to challenge and from their side to receive that challenge and look at how things may change. So I think those relationships are absolutely crucial. And it is a complex world, and no one has the answers that are all encompassing. So as well as the intent and the focus on outcomes, there's also a sense of, together, we may not have all the answers, but we know what we want. We know that we'll see some of it as we go, and we're just going to launch. We're going to go for this, and we trust each other to work together to best intent. And there is literally this morning, I was talking to a great team of ours that's looking at developing the most sophisticated digital twin solutions. And all of the talk was about how we see this from the customer's perspective. And I think if with these complex problems, if we try and squeeze the customer's issue into the constraints of the way that we can currently solve that, we do them a disservice. We're much better to be truthful about the great things we've got and the things we don't know, and the desire to partner together to make the most of our joint learning.
Yeah. Early in my career, when I was in management consulting, we were taught, do you know the problem you're trying to solve? Of course, when you're young, you're pretty sure you've got the problem nailed right out of the gate, right? It's what's in front of your face, right? And I love how you described how the firm as a whole sat back to explore the problem of decarbonization. And it's easy to make an intentional statement, as they say, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. The question is can you make good on those intentions? And so instead of just leaping into making marketing-based promises, you had in your integrity to ask the questions, can we do this? And what is this that we are hoping to do? I find this is true certainly with clients. And the more that we spend time co-defining the problems, we then co-create the solutions. And I don't know that there's a client in the world that wants it done to them. I think they want to do stuff with us at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the phrase that we use a lot is engineering net zero, and with the emphasis really on the engineering of it and getting into those complex problems. And the selfish point of view from a supplier side is to say, I can grab the customer's data and I've got it hostage, and then I can exploit that data. And the more that we examine exactly what it takes to go on the journey. I use the example of digital twins because it's front of mind at the moment. But, there's a journey from effectively a geophysical modeling of an asset, a BIM model, an electronic model that just looks the same. And then maybe you can add a bit of data and you've got a BIM model or something. But towards a truly two-way, intelligent, optimizing mechanism that's real-time helping, and as it's a really rich environment for our customers and their operators to move in. We know that we are an important part of the solution to integrate, to engineer, to support, and to manage. But there are some great tech companies. There's the incredible knowledge in the minds of the customers' operators. There's the needs of the end customers. All of those. So we recognize our position of one of 7 or 8 key players in that solution. And part of our culture, one of the things I like about the culture of SNC-Lavalin is it's a natural partnering kind of company. It is the intent is immediately to partner. And in that realm of both of, we've talked about decarbonizing and I'm talking about digital tools. We are one of a group of 7 or 8, sometimes more, that are operating an ecosystem where partnering is really important, and to be good partners, as we talked about, that means being honest with each other and honest about our own opportunities as well as our limitations.
Yeah, but I think the key role that you can play, if you're not already playing, is in those multi-party, multi-stakeholder dynamics, is playing that role of orchestrator.
Yeah. Because
that's what's hard. And as engineers, you're geared to orchestrate multiple components coming into unified alignment. And I think when you exercise that leadership management talent into those contexts, then outcomes are not only more holistic, they're accelerated. And so what a powerful role for you to play.
Actually, and it ends up transforming our business because at the core, we have a great team of architects and engineers and project managers and environmentalists and builders and planners and all of that good stuff. But to that, we're adding a whole bunch of digital capabilities that are absolutely necessary to that. And actually also adding, because it's easy to, particularly as engineers, it's easy to focus in on the technology and the concrete and the steel, but it's people, right? I mean, it's people who operate the systems. It's people who are the beneficiaries of the investments that we're making in infrastructure. And if we've got socioeconomic goals that are intended as a result of the investments we're making in these assets, then getting really engaged with our customers about how we're developing this for their benefit is really important. So one of our primary pieces of training for our young technical professionals, which frankly, as you said, I learned by trial and error on the job, but we're hoping to accelerate that process for our new starters, is who are a great crowd, but this is not just about 5 miles of additional transit from A to B. It is about transforming the future of this deprived community and the kids and the people using it, and to do that with the minimum environmental impact. You better understand that when you're looking at the forces and stresses and strains on the steel and concrete you're designing, because if you're not, you will not help to optimize the system because you're not thinking sufficiently of the whole.
SNC-Lavalin, 30,000 people, something like that?
Yeah, 30,000.
This is like a giant aircraft carrier, right? And there's a lot to move this carrier. And the world and the need for solutions is accelerating. How do you make decisions? How do you move in a timely manner to make decisions that are not fragmented, not only for your internally, for your own organization, but on your client's perspective? Steve, how do you navigate something like this when it's this large and complex and amorphous?
So it's a great question. And I think everybody talks about, turning the aircraft carrier or turning the super tanker, hopefully not too many super tankers in 20 years time. But that presupposes, it's going in entirely the wrong direction and it's a big turn. So I think for some years, we've been going in the right direction broadly. And I think it all starts with a foundation of values, of things that we as an organization have at our heart. And that is our North Star. We want to create a better planet and a better future for the planet and its people. That's what we want to do. We're passionate about that. We've got a series of values that we stick to. So that keeps us cohesive, and leading businesses as we do, we've got the privilege of being able to see the whole and being able to have the relative luxury of some time to think about the future. But I think as you look at the quality, as I look at the quality of the hundreds and hundreds of entry-level people who are coming in, many of them hugely more switched on and smart than I think I can ever remember being at that age. You realize you're foolish to do any of this in isolation. So I think we've got a very clear strategy. We know exactly where we want to go as an organization. That's our North Star. And then we listen and learn. We listen to our people, and we socialize a lot. And then we develop. We recently laid down a new strategy as we pivoted to a stronger growth phase. There was a whole bunch of people involved in that strategy. So I think as a leader, you're looking for the big themes. You're looking to prioritize, but also it's more about the principles of what we're trying to achieve rather than to give detailed instructions, that to people who are frankly a lot more smarter and more able to do those sort of things. And those people can see their circumstances much more than I can. So it's very much more about creating an environment in which our great people can make their own decisions.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it on the front end. If we're values aligned, half of the argument goes away, right? Yeah. It's an acceleration to authentic dialogue as opposed to argumentation and posturing. And so that certainly accelerates things.
I couldn't agree more, David. I think the more gray hairs that are on my head, the more I firmly believe in the importance of culture. And for us as leaders, setting the tone. The reason I joined SNC-Lavalin was for two primary reasons: the culture and the potential. And I think culture is enormously important.
We speak often at the Design Intelligence Leadership Institute about the criticality of culture, but the culture is primarily set by leadership. It emanates from the way leaders lead and communicate and promulgate the the values of the firm. And you folks, SNC-Lavalin, went through its own evolution of leadership that has founded into a new value set, which is very attractive, and you're attracting global talent to it as a result of, you're one of them. You got attracted to come here because of that. And how critical this idea is about leadership and its inextricable tie to being a cultural ambassador at all times, certainly within. But we were talking about leadership and about growth, and you certainly are on a growth initiative. We witnessed in the United States the passage of the largest physical infrastructure bill ever in our history, $1.2 trillion. We used to talk in billions. Now we're talking trillions. It's almost crazy. And all that money has to be distributed or put out within a 5-year period. It's on an accelerated track across a wide range of initiatives. The reality is so much of that is in the sweet spot of your organization. And, we look at infrastructure as not a toss word, but as the foundations of our society. And we look at this as when a dollar is dropped in the proverbial pond of infrastructure, traditionally it generates another $2 to $4 of above ground new construction. You do the numbers, it gets overwhelming in a positive way. But what do you see as the positive economic as well as social outcomes of this across the next 5 to 10 years, particularly here in the United States? I live in Atlanta, you live in the Los Angeles area, so we're both watching it East Coast, West Coast side. What say you about this future with this big boulder that's been dropped in our pond?
There is an enormous infrastructure gap. So it is great to see the scale of the investment, but we have to match that against the scale of the need. There's been a huge underinvestment, not only in the US, but a number of other countries over a number of years. And it's great that we're starting to begin to address that. And when you look at some of the projects that we're involved with as we help our customers to get ready for this investment, you just imagine the benefit that each one of those single projects will have in the local community. And you just know, as you said, you invest this stuff, and the benefit is not just in those 2 to 4 construction jobs. It's in the next 100 years worth of, that journey being easier, these people being better housed, this community starting to thrive in a way that it didn't. Realistically, the funding will take time to come through the system, and that's fine because we as an industry need to gear up to be ready to deal with it. The immediate benefit I think it's had, particularly post-COVID or during COVID, when there was just such a concern about the future and pressures on all sorts of funding mechanisms, is to give the industry from top to bottom, and particularly our state and local agencies and so on, the confidence to press on. So many things get put on hold. And the moment you stop a project, value starts vanishing from it. People who know what's going on, you can't just pick up a complex job and having put it down a year ago. So the confidence to carry on and move things forward, even though the dollar by dollar funding hasn't hit through. But the other thing I'd say to this, Dave, is if it's easy for us to sit here and say it's great. The duty we have as an industry, I think, is now to make these dollars have a different impact on society and the planet than maybe happened in a huge spend in the early 50s or something. Mm-hmm. Let us spend every dollar optimizing the socioeconomic outcomes, the best use of digital tools, getting those productivity gains the industry is really not delivered on until very recently, supporting diversity in our industry and so on, and decarbonizing to the maximum effect. So we can't just spend it in the old traditional way. We can't. So much of one of the things that we're really focused on as an organization, it's not only the technology and the environment, it's the means of delivery. Our industry is still one which is characterized by conflict and by waste and by argument and by mistaken allocation of risk and reward. And so we've actually moved away as a very conscious decision from, for example, fixed price construction, because we just don't think it serves the industry well. And we think a much more collaborative approach is required. And ultimately that serves all much better. So just as well, we've got a couple of years before the dollar flows, because we as an industry, I think, have got to ramp up. And as SNC-Lavalin, we relish that challenge, and we're really looking forward to being part of laying down another layer of really great infrastructure for this country.
Yeah. And I love the way you put that. The business models are quite outdated, and they have not kept up with reality. And it would seem during this period, this pregnant pause while we're waiting for this money to make it through the snake's belly and come out to us, we'd be well served to be educating the owners, the building owners, the infrastructure owners, the governance bodies, because at the end of the day, this industry is beholding to the folks writing the checks. And I think that we believe that they actually know what they're doing most of the time. That's not a diminishing statement. It's that they see an end that they're looking for. They understand that they have to pay for it in their maybe naive models by splitting everybody up and running bids on everyone and ensuring that they drive to the lowest price. They're being responsible, but perhaps going to an earlier statement, they're solving the wrong problem. And unless we as an industry not confront, but come alongside to say there is a better way, and it's risk mitigated and it's transparent and it's collaborative, not collusion, there's an opportunity for us to all win together. And, you probably will turn this thing in at a lower price and ahead of budget by doing it this way. Are you willing to have some discussion about this? And I think that's the kind of education that the industry needs to be putting back to its clients.
I like the way you put it at the end there. I mean, I think this is co-development, and this is, we've got a bunch of clients who are very smart, and they know their business better than we know their business, no matter how hard we try. So I don't think we see ourselves as the educators, but we do see ourselves as innovators and catalysts of change. And so we want to co-develop new ways of doing things with our customers. We want to give them ideas. We want to challenge their thinking where we think it's not going to get the best outcome for them and the citizens that they're serving. And that's the approach we want to take. I had a great discussion recently with Sydney Metro, where they're trying some really innovative contractual models. We have some customers in Canada who are really starting to embrace that model too. In the US, it's not something in our industry that's prevalent as a contracting model yet. No. But ultimately, we firmly believe that it will be. And I love the complexity because of all the competing demands, not only of technology. We haven't even begun to talk about things like the resilience of the assets that we need to, who thought about what the pandemic would bring? Some of the climate change demands on structures are incredible. Some of the cyber threats are, extraordinary. If I listen to our IT security department about the number of attacks that a company like ours has to defend against, it's extraordinary. So we and our owners have got to look at all of that increasing complexity and the idea that, a 2-month window to put in a fixed price bid, that will cover all eventualities. It's not real risk transfer. It's an apparent risk transfer. And actually the risk didn't go where you wanted it to go. And you end up paying through the nose or having a disaster if you're not careful. Whereas I think there's plenty of opportunity. There's some great competition to both have real rigor in terms of competition, not collusion, but then to develop collaboration and not this rigid fixed thinking that has so often, got our industry into trouble.
Oh, wonderful. Cogent, crystal clear perspectives and insights. Steve Morris, thank you for joining us on This Is Design Intelligence. It's been an honor to have you with us.
It's been a great pleasure, Dave, to talk to you, and I look forward to our next conversations.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of This Is Design Intelligence. The producer is Laura Spells. The sound engineer is Jared Knable. This has been a DI Media Group production.